Welcome to my journey through the Bible. This is going to be a summary of Genesis chapter 3, 1 through 24. This chapter I want to do a little different. I'm just going to add a little bit of context here and there, and just to bring home the point for this chapter. I think this is very important because this is where sin comes into play, and I want us to understand how easy sin can seep into our lives. So it says the serpent, which is a snake, asked Eve, "Did God say that you could not eat of every tree?" This was Satan's way of tempting Eve. Satan is not all-knowing like God is. Satan feeds on what we say and how we act so that he can attempt to lure us in with our lust or any of our desires. So Satan was tempting her with this question. And then Eve tells him, yes, but God told us, let me read this so I don't get it incorrect. It says, we can eat of everything except we are not to eat or touch the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or we shall surely die. This is in verse 17. Well, go back to Genesis 2:17. God said, "Do not eat." So now I'm going to explain a little more because Eve added to what God said. God said, "Do not eat or touch." And then the servant, of course, he's going to lie. And he says, "You will not die. You will be like God, and you will know good and evil." I think this is what got Eve into trouble. Because since she added to God's word, I think she looked at the fruit. She looked and thought, that looks good. It looks pleasing. I'm touching it. Nothing happened to me. So then, therefore, maybe I'll take a bite or eat of it and see what happens. So that's the first thing that got her into trouble, because sometimes when we add to God's word, then the part that we added, there doesn't seem to be a consequences on it. And then we go on to do the next step, which that part is disobeying God. And that's where the consequences come into play. So she did eat, and she gave it to her husband, and he did eat. This is in verse 6 of chapter 3, Genesis 3:6. And they both knew that they were naked, and they both hid from the all-knowing God. It's beautiful. God asked, "Where are you?" And God's talking to them. So I find that pretty amazing that he just walks through the garden and talks to them. But when God had asked them, when he found them and found out they were hidden, God said, "What have you done?" Well, here started the blame game. Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the snake or the serpent. Why couldn't they have just took responsibility and said, "God, I've done wrong. Forgive me"? I wonder if the outcome would have been different. But that part we'll never know, because that's not how the story went. They just hid, and then they had their punishment. But we do the same thing today. We do something we know we're not supposed to do. We try to cover it up. We try to hide. We try to pretend that it didn't happen and hope that nobody saw or knew anything about it. We don't want them to say anything to put us on the spot, because then we might have to explain our mistake or admit our mistake. But I really believe this is where we have to take responsibility. We have to own our mistakes and just admit, hey, I'm sorry. Ask for forgiveness and move on. God is a merciful, graceful God. He will forgive us, and He will let you might have to still pay a price for it. I mean, if you speed, going down the road speeding, guess what? A cop's going to pull you over. There's probably a pretty good chance that he's not going to take you to jail, but you're going to pay a fine for the ticket. So God could not allow the sin to go unchecked. So there came punishment. And Adam and Eve had to be removed from the Garden of Eden. So here comes the painful stories of our life that's ruined by the results of sin. And it puts strain on our relationship with God if we try to hide or try to act like things didn't happen. God knows we're not perfect. He didn't make us to be perfect. He wanted us to lean on Him and turn to Him when things don't go right. God says He's even preparing a new earth and a new heaven, a paradise for all of us. And that's in Revelations 2, 21 and 23, which we will get to there eventually. But